Hey guys, Tom Baker here from Chasing Cars, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through my answer to a question which I think has been on the minds of a lot of car people lately, especially people that like cars like this, and that is, would Toyota have built the new Supra by themselves, or would this car have never existed if it wasn't for the partnership with BMW? Now, on a few other videos, I've alluded that my view is that basically this car wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the collaboration between Toyota and BMW. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly why I think that, based on my conversations with Tetsuya Tada, based on stuff that has been published that Akio Toyoda and Tetsuya Tada have said to journalists, just basically the collection of what we've been able to piece together about the process behind the new Toyota Supra and why it is like it is. But before that, if you haven't watched our reviews of the Supra, you can find them on the channel. And you can also subscribe down below so you don't miss our reviews, news, comparisons, and insight on cars for the Australian market and around the world. But now let's jump inside the new Supra and have a chat about the very nature of this new sports car. Okay, but before we get into the nitty-gritty of the specific BMW Z4 Toyota Supra collaboration, it's important to talk about the kind of car company Toyota is, and especially the kind of car company they were back in 2012 when the key foundational decisions of the new Supra project were being made. And we got to get our heads around that at first, because one of the things that a lot of people don't remember or don't think about in terms of car development is that the lead times in this industry are very, very long. So the Supra project started in 2012. We know that Tetsuya Tada is on record saying that. So it's now 2019. It's been 7 years since BMW and Toyota had their first meetings to start discussing this car and the new G29 Z4. So Toyota has changed in between now and then, and it's not right to sort of impose our view of what Toyota is like now on decisions that were being made and finalized years ago. So in 2012, what was happening at Toyota? Akio Toyoda had taken over, and it was very early in the company interpreting his philosophy that they weren't going to make any more boring cars. So for the last few years, we've talked a lot about Akio Toyoda's view that white goods-esque, appliance-esque Toyotas were not the way forward for the company, and that they need to start developing cars that are really good to drive and also quite good looking. But back in 2012, that was only just getting started. So the conversations around the BRZ and 86 program had happened even before that. And that was sort of a place of thinking where the Supra project would have started too. The 86 BRZ project had been a success with Toyota in that the collaboration between the two companies had gone pretty smoothly. The car was just launching to market. There was a lot of hype around it because there'd been a couple of years between a concept and the production car. So Toyota were sort of thinking that these collaborations might be a way to get into or get back into segments that they had left behind while the company was pursuing the sort of boring Toyota phase in the 1990s and the first decade of the 2000s. So there was already precedent there with the Subaru deal. When it came time to make a more premium sports car, because there were lots of people within the business that thought that you need a sort of more expensive Grand Tourer to be your halo vehicle within the range. When it came time for that, they weren't looking at Subaru, they were casting their eyes at more premium manufacturers. Now, at this end of the market, there's just not that many open slots. Mercedes have had a technical partnership with Nissan for many years, so Mercedes weren't an option. Porsche, part of the Volkswagen group, they don't do crossovers with other companies, so they weren't an option. Same thing with Audi. BMW, though, were pretty open, so there was kind of a foundation there for those conversations to start. Also, Tetsuya Tada, the engineer, the chief product manager behind the new Supra and also behind the 86, big fan of BMW, had driven sort of every new BMW throughout his career and thought that they were a good base point to start from, and so that is where that conversation started. BMW were an open slot in the premium sports car manufacturing field. Toyota liked collaborations. The 86 collaboration with Subaru had gone pretty well, so it was sort of looking like a match made in heaven. Now, none of that is to say that Toyota couldn't have developed the Supra themselves if they didn't want to, and I'll come to how they could have done that in just a minute. But we also need to think about the inherent conservatism within Toyota and within Japanese car making, and the role that a few of our astute commentators have pointed out already, the role of face. To gamble and lose is a big deal, really for any car maker, but especially for Japanese car makers. Sports cars are an enormous financial investment, and they usually don't make money. They usually make a loss. The 86 BRZ, we think that they made a slim profit, but they were very accessibly priced and they sold a lot of copies. Here at the Supra Z4 sort of end of the range, the cars are a lot more expensive, many fewer people can afford to buy them. And unless you're sort of a Porsche 911 with 75 different variations of every generation, it's quite hard to make a profit on these cars. So financially getting it across the line and reputationally was really hard. So Toyota looked for a partner to balance out all of those factors and have somebody else on board to take the risk. So BMW were the right people for the job in Toyota's mind, but they wanted to take it in quite a different direction. As my friend Justin Hilliard published in Go Auto, based on an interview with Tetsuya Tada at goauto.net.au, BMW actually wanted to develop an i9 Halo sports car with Toyota's electric technology. Toyota, Tetsuya Tada, Akio Toyota, they all got their way in saying no to that, and that they wanted to do maybe one final pure combustion sports car before electrification and all of that stuff starts to really bite. And I personally think that's pretty cool. So where Toyota had influence here is, even though a lot of the oily bits are BMW, Toyota insisted on the hard points of the car. So a completely new track and wheelbase had to be developed. It's completely original. No BMW has dimensions like this at this point in time, even though underneath this car is BMW's cluster architecture platform. Even though the engines are BMW engines in the Supra, the suspension is largely shared with other BMWs. The fundamental hard parts, they were Toyota. They did all of that. And what Toyota say is, after the dimensions of the car, the engine and the suspension components were selected, the two companies diverged. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's completely true. They say that the software for all of those components is completely different, but having done an in-depth comparison with the Z4 M40i, which you can see up here, we know there's a lot of similarities, but there are also fundamental differences in steering feel, in suspension feel. So maybe there is some truth after all to the divergent point where these cars started to be developed independently. And what we've ended up with, I think, is a really great Grand Tourer coupe that can be really, really fantastic on a country road, but also quite comfortable around town, quite comfortable on the highway, and also really different in character to the G29 Z4. Now, could Toyota have done it themselves? Yes, I think they could have. They had TNGA L, which is the longitudinal rear drive variant of the TNGA platform. They've got a number of V6 engines. They probably could have developed a straight six engine if they wanted to honor the previous generation Supra. They could have done it. We're talking about a very, very wealthy car maker here. The resources would have been there. The question isn't could they have done it? The question is, would they have done it? Not only has history shown that evidently they wouldn't have, we think that basically for pet projects like the Supra and the 86, Toyota just doesn't allocate all that much money to it. They don't allocate all that much time to it. The bread and butter of the company is still cars like the RAV4, the Corolla, the Camry, and thankfully all those cars are good to drive now, but sports cars are just products that sit on the sideline. To pour a ton of money into them would be a massive gamble, and today's market, people aren't buying sports cars, they're buying SUVs. So I think that we've ended up with a good outcome in that we have an excellent sports car in the new Supra, even if it has BMW underpinnings. And who even says that having BMW underpinnings is a bad thing? I mean, for all of my life, having association with BMW has been considered pretty excellent. So I think that we've ended up with a good car. Maybe Toyota should have done it themselves, but I think if we're being realistic about the world we live in and about what Toyota is like as a Japanese car maker, it wasn't going to happen. But I'd like to know what you would think, so please post comments down below, share this video with your friends if they care about the Supra, and just share your thoughts on this car. And if you haven't subscribed to Chasing Cars, please do so, and thanks for watching.